Hello. So, another big reason that I've been hesitant to do something like this, these unscripted commentaries, are really just talking about topics in general, even in a scripted manner. Specifically referring to content stuff, not just talking in general, is kind of the feeling that, what is the best way to put this? A feeling like whatever I could say about a more complex topic, I've already heard the take before. I feel like sometimes I'm not really able to add anything new to the table. It's not an entirely rational thought because I think if I, well, give things enough thought that I can say something insightful even if it's not the most original thing. One thing that I think y'all should know about me right off the bat, really, is I am terrible at taking my own advice about stuff. Now, the reason I bring that up is related to talking, like giving insightful or original takes on topics, however complex or casual they might be. The advice I give to people when it comes to doing anything creative, really, or creating any kind of content, goes along the lines of this: it doesn't have to be unique if it's done better. It doesn't have to be better if it's done uniquely. And ultimately, it doesn't even technically have to be either of those as long as, you put your heart and soul into it and you don't, kowtow to whoever. When it comes to making stuff, especially when it comes to making art, writing and visual art, animation, video games, what have you, I think it's always better to try to make stuff that can appeal to anyone rather than trying to make stuff that appeals to everyone. And what I mean by that is if you try to make stuff that appeals to everyone, you the thing that you're making will lose its identity. It will lose your voice. Your voice will not be heard in the art anymore. It'll just be, I don't know the exact word you'd use for it, but it'd just be, it'd be sanitized. I guess that's a good word for it. If you try to appeal to everyone, you will make a sanitized product that doesn't feel like you. But if you make something that could be enjoyed by anyone, largely from just focusing on quality and being genuine with what you make and just really, again, pouring your heart out into it, that will be a lot more appealing to people, and I think ultimately would bring more people to it despite it not technically appealing to everyone. I think just trying to focus on quality like that ends up casting a wider net than specifically trying to cast a gigantic net that limits you in what you can do. And the whole point of me bringing all that up is, again, I'm bad at taking my own advice, and so I'm afraid that when I make stuff, I don't really know how appealing it will be. I don't know if anyone is really gonna care, Which is irrational because I have people in my life that I know care about the things that I make, not just like this kind of stuff, making videos or whatever. In fact, like making videos like this is obviously a much more recent endeavor. Before this, it was just making shit posts and uploading me playing people's custom content in video games. There are people in my life that do care about the things that I make and the things that I say, and so it's not entirely rational for me to believe that no one is going to care. And yet, that kind of thought still creeps into my mind every now and then. It's difficult to deal with, to reconcile with, whatever word you want to use there. As you can tell, I'm always very hesitant about what words I use to describe things because I'm not always entirely sure if I'm using the word with the right definition that I want to use or conveys the right tone, whatever. It's another one of those tangents, and another one of those tangents about tangents. The point is, I need to learn to take my own advice more often and put myself out there and put the stuff that I want to make out there, even if I don't always think it's going to be the most unique thing, or if it's going to be that much better than what other people have made, or even if I think anyone is going to see it. I should make stuff not with the hopes that anyone is going to see it, but just for the sake of putting it out there. You see that Twitter meme all the time that's like the stick figure guy is sitting in front of his cake and he's like, "Oh man, my cake sucks compared to that guy's cake." And then the second panel is the dude holding up the fork and knife, or the second dude is holding up a fork and knife and he's going, "Holy shit, 2 cakes." I'll put it on the screen if I even remember to do that. If not, then I'll just cut out the part where I said I'm going to do that. Even that, despite how often I've seen it and even shared it with other people, I don't follow I need to follow my own damn advice. It's not the only example of me not following my own advice, but it's certainly a pretty prominent one, and one that is especially fitting to bringing it up here in this unscripted commentary series, because me doing this is kind of my attempt at breaking away from that mindset of feeling a bit inadequate. I'm not really sure if I would call it imposter syndrome. I don't think I would go that far, because it doesn't get to the point where I like take one look at something I've made, and after all the time I put into it, I'm like, holy shit, this is fucking awful. I hate this. I never want to see it again. I'm going to delete it. It never gets so bad that I never want to touch it again. But I do still have those little seeds of doubt are always sprouting just a bit more, and the best way to cut them down, to kill those little weeds growing in my mind, is to just do stuff for the sake of putting something out there, regardless of who or how many see it. I think it's important for more people to just be able to put themselves out there without having to worry about why at all. You don't need a why to put out content. Hate that word, content. You don't need a why to put out art. You don't need a why to put out videos. You don't need a why to put out yourself. As long as you're not hurting somebody with it, obviously. You should be able to feel free to put out whatever you want to put out there without having to worry about if anyone is going to engage with it. Obviously, fucking social media has kind of convinced people otherwise, I think, and I can't blame people for thinking that way when it feels like, for some people, and unfortunately me included at times, feels like the only way we'd be able to break out of the monotony of life and potentially even break away from having to do a traditional job, for instance, is to put out content for the sake of getting people to engage with it, and then potentially being able to monetize it and gain a following and become famous or whatever the hell from it. And like I said, again, that's kind of a trap that I've fallen for. But I just gotta not do that. And it's the simple answer. It sounds simple on paper, but it's not, because the human brain is complicated and it thinks in irrational ways, and it will often continue to think in those ways even when you're fully aware that what is happening is irrational. Simply being aware of what's going on is not enough to make it stop. Awareness is the first step. It's not the only step. It's kind of the same principle as to why placebos work, which, admittedly, I don't know the exact principle behind why placebos work. All I know is they work even if you're aware that it's a placebo. And so I guess in that kind of way, those kind of irrational mindsets of making stuff for the sake of engagement and making money and all that kind of stuff is a placebo. Would you call that a nocebo? No. I don't know what exactly. I was going to say negative placebo, but then I was like, no, that's called a nocebo, but that means something different, I think. Just, you know what I'm trying to say. It's like a placebo, but not the good kind. So, obviously, this one was a little more all over the place than the previous one, and the previous one was already a bit all over the place. That's going to be the recurring theme for me doing this stuff. But at this point, I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit how all over the place it is. The fact that I have an outlet where I'm able to just not just simply vomit up words, but do it in a way that kind of relieves the stress of the things that those words have been harboring in my mind. It's nice. It's nice to be able to do that, regardless of how many people might be listening, if anyone. So, before I inevitably collapse trying to come up with something else to say and tie into the topic, I am just going to wrap it up there. I think that's a fitting end, I'd say. My name is Mâché, and this ferret is going to sign out now. Goodbye.